2.
Hi!
We're live!
We are live.
And it's all working. Yes. Welcome, GSD leaders. We are so excited to be here for the number one time suck. And for everybody that submitted answers to our question, which our question was, what's your number one time suck? Thank you. We're going to be answering that today here. I'm Angela Proffitt, founder of GSD Creative, where we get stuff done.
Exactly.
Amanda?
I'm Amanda, and I am GSD Queen, as I have been so happily labeled. Aja.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aja, and I am the owner of Notably Gray and a GSD quote princess. That's what we went with last time.
I love that. Love
it. And you were live today with the A team. And we are excited about answering some of your questions today. So anybody that jumps in live, feel free to ask your questions. But we do have some questions from our audience that they asked through our email list and through social media. And so Amanda went through and she's going to pick out some people that ask some questions. Today's theme, so last week's theme was the number one time suck, which everyone that answered us, it was email. So we gave a few pointers and a few tactics and platforms that you can use to actually really help get your emails streamlined. And so today we're going to be talking about social media because social media was the number 2 time suck. And so, Amanda, kick us off with our first question.
Yeah, so it seems that a lot of people have trouble with social media, and we get it. We totally hear you. We have had our struggles, and we're excited to share. So the first kind of number one thing is posting, and people are really interested in knowing how to manage that best and what platforms we would recommend or have experience in using. So yeah, that's the first one.
So, well, even before, well, I guess we don't have to really go in order, but before you post the content, you've got to make the content, right? So, yes. But we'll go back and talk about that. So, as far as like posting it, there are multiple platforms, and I feel like we've used a bunch of them. We've used Hootsuite, we've used Agorapulse, we've used HubSpot. We've used, I don't know, what are we using now? Amanda Sprout Social.
Yeah, but also even like the more basic stuff, like we do use Plan, we use Creator Studio. There's so many. I personally kind of like the simpler platforms better because sometimes more robust just means more complicated. If you're not like specifically like, I don't know, do you feel the same way? Like, I feel like the more robust platforms, like they offer so much, but then we don't end up using all the features, and it's just simpler to use a more simple platform, if that makes sense.
Well, and I like.
I was just like, no.
Yes, no, it does. It does. No, it does. I'm just thinking. I'm like, I'm literally going through all the list of softwares that I've ever used for social media, and it's so extensive. Like now that the question's been asked, right? Like I feel like a large part of first off, Angela is right. Rewinding back to making the content first, but I do think that a large part of just like getting that cadence and like figuring out what's best for your business is literally trying the softwares. But I know Angela has some, and I know you all have some that you really like. So I do want to hear some of your insight on that.
Well, and let's start off with free too, right? So Creator Studio, which is managed, it's managed by Facebook, and you can schedule your content on Instagram and Facebook, and it's a free tool. And then I like Plan That because I'm very visual. I want to see it. And so with Plan That, you can drag and drop your pictures and your content so you can actually see it in the grid. And there's another handy feature for the hashtags that Plan That offers as well. And there's a paid version too. But really, I do think that the time suck isn't so much of, okay, let's sit down and schedule it. But the idea of sitting down and scheduling it is to do it once a month, or if you're going to commit to once a week, first getting the tools and then putting it on your calendar and blocking the time to actually schedule it. I know for some, and we used to do it for the entire year before the pandemic. And then the pandemic started and we had to change some content, unpublish some things. So then I'm like, okay, quarterly. And then we got really busy. And so I'm like, okay, monthly. And then sometimes we're even going back and doing a few things weekly, depending on if there's podcasts we've done or YouTube lives that we've done. But the whole thing of the time suck is to block the time on the calendar to sit down and actually schedule the post. It doesn't make sense to do it every single day in my mind. I don't know. That's just the way my brain works.
No,
Any
I
other
totally agree.
tips?
The only other thing I was going to say is I know that a lot of people will talk about the difference between using more of like the native platform to schedule social media content as opposed to using like a third party. And I've gone back and forth on this. I've heard lots of different things. I will say just from, I guess, experience share and insight, and then like just from an analytics standpoint, I find it best to use the native platform. So I really like Facebook Creator Studio because it, especially if your main social channels are Facebook and Instagram, I find that when you post in the native platform, it kind of favors your reach, and it helps your posts get out there better than using a third party. I don't know what y'all's insight is there, but again, Facebook Creator Studio, they have the insights there. They don't have the nice feature as far as like being able to tell you what hashtags are best for your business. It's still a third party, and this native, like organically looking in the app to seeing which hashtags work best for you. But I am interested. What are your thoughts about that? Using a third party as opposed to using the native platform?
Well, and there's one more tool that I want to mention too. So if you're big into Pinterest, Tailwind is
Yeah.
one of the only, it was like the first open API that where you could link Pinterest to Tailwind to schedule. Here's my philosophy on that. It's better than nothing. If you are so busy and you don't have time to do it on the go or daily or weekly in order to keep consistency for your brand message, if you don't have time to do it organically or in the native platform, at least schedule it. Now, if you are choosing just to be lazy and not do it, don't do that. Like make the effort to put it on the native platform. I do agree with you, Aja, that the analytics and the reach is going to be better if you can natively do it. It's just like stories. It's like that was built meant for real time. Like what's happening today. And I know even I batch our stories sometimes, and it's like people are like, "Oh my gosh, you were in Cabo," and I'm like, "Oh, that was 2 months ago." But I'm, but I'm still like putting it on the story. But I do think trying to keep those things, in real time and relevant to like what you're doing in your business that week or that month, which again goes back to planning out the strategy for what you want to post. And the thing is, when you have a strategy of what you want to post at least quarterly, then it's not so hard of like what to come up with and when to post it kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing too, if you're new to some of these platforms, you do want to post every day and you do want to gather data and you do want to make sure that you're taking advantage of everything. I know with like YouTube, we couldn't customize our URL until we got 100 subscribers. And then I know with LinkedIn, I think you have to maybe have a certain amount of likes or follows to apply for LinkedIn Live. I don't know, but there's all these kind of sidebar rules that are goals that you might want to work towards, and being consistent matters. So
to add on to that, talking about a strategy and talking about rules and things like that, I do think that it's important if you are going to focus in on your social media, just make sure that you're doing it educated in the platforms, and because they're all different, the algorithms are different, the rules are different. If you looked into it, you probably be pretty surprised. Like some things you can't transfer from other platforms to different platforms. They don't like that. So, when you're strategizing that out, you really have to be intentional about what you're doing and make sure that you know what is accepted by the platform individually.
Exactly.
Totally.
And another thing that I wanted to share, this is specifically for Instagram, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but when you look in your insights, as far as the times that Instagram gives you the best time to post, that is in Pacific time. It is not in your respective time. A lot of people think that is in the respective time zone that they're in, but it's not. All of that is in Pacific time. So just little
That
insight.
would make sense
I don't
because
know if anyone knew that.
I didn't even pay attention to that because that would make sense as to why our IG lives are like best at 3 p.m. But really, I'm like, 3 p.m.? That's like early, but that would make sense if it's on, because if we do it 5 p.m. our time, okay, anyway, that totally makes sense.
Yep, just
I didn't even know that.
FYI, it's in Pacific time.
Oh my God.
So next question. This is from Kanan. Hi, Kanan. We love Kanan. He is awesome.
Details Nashville.
And Kanan is awesome at social media. He's great, but he said that one of his number one time sucks is getting distracted with social media and whether he's just browsing or actually supposed to be working with it. So I think it's, that's a good question. Like, what amount of time should you be spending, actually strategizing out your content and then engaging with others on social media?
That's a good one.
Aja, you taught us about.
We're both looking at Aja.
That's a good timer. That's a good one. Well, first off, I would definitely want to say this. I had to just personally put a time limit on the apps that I use for social media. I know that a lot of us, it sounds like the question is, how much time should I spend engaging as opposed to how much time should I spend strategizing? But then it kind of sounded like he likes to look at Instagram personally, just like scrolling through things, or is it more from like a business perspective?
I think it's just personally.
Yeah, I'm asking. Oh. Okay, personally. Okay, so as far as engaging, I definitely think it depends on the platform. So on TikTok, and Angela, you can speak to this. I've found that once you post and you just leave the app for a little bit and come back, for some reason that works. That works on that respective platform. I've found that with Instagram, you cannot do that. You just absolutely cannot do that. Once you post something, I just kind of have a rule. So I spend 10 minutes engaging on my home feed. So people who I follow, definitely want to show love to the people who I follow and the people who follow me. And then the respective hashtags that I've used on my post. I want to spend time going and engaging in those hashtags. And then if a lot of people say, I know Gary Vee's he believes in this. One of the things that he does is he takes the top post in each hashtag and then he goes through that person's respective profile and then he comments and essentially there's just like a 10-10-10 rule that I have. 10 minutes on your home feed, 10 minutes spent looking in the hashtags, and then 10 minutes spent commenting on the top post within those hashtags. 30 minutes, which is a lot. Can be for one platform.
Unless you're trying to go to sleep at night and you get sucked in. I get sucked into TikTok, but I set an alarm. So like my whole thing, like that's your strategy. And that's awesome. And I will say too that I notice like if we post something and then we just leave the app on Instagram, that, like you said, that's not good. Like you want to be there to. I remember when we first started doing this and we started working with Aja, and she's like, you need to get back within 30 minutes. I'm like, well, that stuff's never going to happen with me unless like Amanda's helping me or someone's helping me, because when things are posting, they're usually scheduled. I'm typically in all-day strategy meetings. I can't be available constantly to comment. So then you have to look at your analytics and think, okay, well, if I need to be available, then I need to look at my calendar and make sure that I'm not in a meeting when I'm actually going to post. And so there's a lot of thought and effort that like goes in to the behind the scenes of it. And I have recognized that, Aja, that if you are able to be there and comment back and show up quickly, with your rules within 30 minutes, we just have to make sure that that's in alignment with like our meeting calendar to make sure that we're there. And I know not everybody lives in meetings all day. And my brother's like, why do you live in meetings all day? Like, do you really, those TikToks, like, does this really need to be a meeting? And I'm like, no, our meetings really need to be meetings. And I'm 100% focused on that. And there's some things like, in fact, 100% of the things that we do now from a service line perspective cannot be emails. Like, they need to be strategy meetings and they need to be focused meetings. So consider that, like, when you're doing your own schedule, to make sure that you're able to respond quickly. I completely agree. I guess the same thing, I don't know, with Facebook, it's like a pay to play thing now. I think, like, if you're boosting or running ads, but I definitely know, like, on our business page, not many people see our content unless we're in the middle of like doing an ad campaign or something. Do you think that Facebook is the same in terms of responding to people within 30 minutes like Instagram?
I don't. I don't. Facebook is one of those platforms for me where I think it really helps when you pay to play there. I think the people who respond and engage on Facebook, it's different. It's a different world there. I don't think that's necessarily. I don't think the same rules applies, and I think this goes back to what Amanda said earlier. Like, each platform has their own set of rules, and I'm even thinking about LinkedIn, right? Like, LinkedIn, they do like when you engage, but the content is so different, and then just like the cadence and having it be more professional and having it be very educational, and then responding fairly quickly on LinkedIn. But and then there's this whole thing of like sliding into people's DMs, right? Like. And on Instagram, that's kind of like not. Some people like it, a lot of people don't. But then, like in LinkedIn, like that is encouraged. So I don't know. It's like Amanda said, the different platforms have their own different roles. But Facebook, no, I don't think that's necessarily true of Facebook.
So Kanan, set timers. Period. The end. Set timers within each app. I like with TikTok, or I'm like, okay, if I'm going to walk on the treadmill or ride the bike, stationary bike, not like a bike outside, because I don't like outside, but it's like, okay, I'll allow myself to like do that as long as I'm being productive doing something else, like getting my steps in or something, just something else.
But I do like what you said around that. Like, yes, definitely setting timers, but outside of like strategizing in the engaging piece, like setting time around that. Right? Like, it's not just 30 minutes of engaging, but you really have to block out on your calendar for that time. So I don't know. I actually didn't think about that. I'm just like, oh, I got to go and engage 30 minutes on Instagram, or I got to go and post and make time to post on Instagram. But then it's like, well, no, I need to add some time there because there's this whole engagement piece that needs to come after. So I like that. I think, yeah, I like that. I never scheduled time for that, but yes.
Time block. Time block. If it's not on my calendar, like, it's not happening. It's just not happening.
So next question is from Pat. She said her number one time suck is planning social media. And I think that we've kind of touched on a lot of the elements of planning social media, but as far as, for your business, you have social media for a purpose, right? Like, it needs to be purposeful and intentional. So when it comes to planning it out, Angela or Aja, how far in advance would you suggest to have content, and what tips do you have for people looking to plan?
I'll let Angela answer this one. That's a good question.
Well, a little strategy that we all worked on together actually was really getting focused, like really laser focused. And so I'll use an example. So if there's 3 things in the quarter that you are wanting to post, and I'm just going to use Instagram as an example, just to keep it easy. And so either a whiteboard or like the big piece this is when I do use paper, but then I take a picture of it. And then strategizing out, like, each week, what do you want to talk about? And There's something that is always educational, something that could be personal, so you can show people like you're a real person other than like a business person, which is really what I used to do. And then a few people are like, people really don't know who you are. Like, you should probably share and post some other things about like your personal life. And I'm like, well, I really don't want to do that. But when I actually started to let people in a little bit on the stories, because I know those disappear, people started to actually start to resonate with me more. Did I say the word right?
I think you still threw the G in there, but
apparently I just make words up over here. And somebody like called me out on my podcast. I'm like, why didn't somebody tell me that I'm not saying it the right way? Shoot. But it's important to think ahead. Like, and then, so for example, we talk about productivity, we talk about profitability, we talk about a lot about content, scheduling, time blocking, how to be the most productive you can be. And then also there are some really fun calendars online. So it's like, what's coming up, what holidays are coming up. There's literally every single day of the year, there's multiple fun holidays like Donut Day. And, we all know like Women's International Day and month. And it's like, if that's in alignment with what your business is offering from a service perspective and just who you are, like your morals and your values and things like that, like look ahead and start to really plan out what are the pictures, what are the videos, what's the copy, what's the hashtags. And that's where it's like, I really do like to time block and sit down either for a whole day on once a month, or maybe a half day every other week, so that I can really like be in it and strategize out. So it's like, if you own a business, it shouldn't be hard to figure out what to talk about or what to plan. The other thing I will say too is if you're not consistent, you're going to confuse the heck out of people, which is what I used to do, is because I didn't think about it. It was just like I would do it on the go, and none of my copy was in alignment. It's not that it wasn't in alignment with what I did. It was just confusing people because I didn't have a strategy. And so it made sense when people are like, what do you do? What exactly do you do? Like, this is really confusing. So I do think that there is, the more clear you are, so clarity is speed. You're going to get speed with consumers understanding how you can help them and how you can resonate with them when you were very clear with your brand message. And so clarity comes from taking the time to sit down and get really clear on what you want to put out, because what you put out is what is going to come back to you.
Exactly. And we have a message from
shout
Pam.
out.
Yes. Hi, Pam.
Hi. I was just on Pam's show. And Anja, you're going to be on soon.
Yes. Pam, thank you so much. Yeah, I agree, Angela. I think this is just some insight and feedback that I've heard from people. Because I know you said, I want to go back to the comment you said, if you have a business and you plan, it shouldn't be that hard to talk about stuff. I think the largest feedback that I hear is that people are just overwhelmed, right? Like they're overwhelmed, and there's so many things that they can talk about, but it's just, yeah, I think the overwhelm is like, there's so many things that they can talk about. Where to start, right? So like where to start and where to hone in and focus on. And I think that goes back to, like you said, your strategy. So can you talk a little bit about, like, for example, I know a lot of people will base their social media post around maybe an upcoming launch or an upcoming release of something, or, a collaboration that they have. So what does that look like for someone who may feel overwhelmed on where to start?
Well, and even so, and again, this is just what I do, but what we, and I love it when people ask us questions, regardless where it comes in from, right? It's like email, Pinterest, DMs, LinkedIn messages. It's like all these messages, and we just compile them in a Google Sheet. And you will start to find a common thread. And your most asked questions over and over and over and over is what I decided. I'm like, okay, people are asking the same thing over and over. That's where I need to focus my energy, because that's what people are needing the most. And that's how I prioritize when I sit down to do like all of our TikTok videos and our reels once a month. I literally have a note on my phone where I will just keep up with questions, and then I sit down and I'll like bang it out in an entire day. But what goes out and the order that it goes out, and Aja, you've taught me this, like, listen to your audience. Just because I want you guys to know something or I think it's a good idea doesn't mean that you are going to think it's a good idea.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that you need that information, because, and this was really hard for me. People buy what they want. They don't buy what they need. And so it's a fine line of telling people what they need to hear versus figuring out a way to say it to where like you're just normal. And like just a normal person. Like my niece, even, she'll text me and she's like, I want you to text me as your niece. I don't want you to act like a professional person when you're texting me about these things. And I'm like, no, this is just me as a person. Like, I'm not talking to you. Like, she's like, you sound like a college professor. I'm like, no, this is just me as a person talking to you. But you want to be able to relate to people. But I also love to teach. Right. But there's some ways, and people respond better when I use their exact words. So I'll give an example. I call emails email jail. Like, I felt as though I was in jail constantly with emails until we really got a system down over the past few years that we've just perfected the heck out of it. But when we ask people, what's your number one time suck, back in their responses, no one said email jail. So when I'm creating a program around how to stop the time suck with emails, I'm not going to call it get out of email jail, which I've done a webinar about that before. Did it do okay? Probably did okay. It could have done much better if I had used the exact verbiage that people consistently were saying back to me in the messages, right? So does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Keywords. Typing
Keywords.
exactly out, like listing exactly what people need. I love that. Yes. And that does make sense. Yeah.
So speaking of relating to people, I think something that we've learned through experience is, Angela mentioned the picture versus the copy. Really, they're both equally as important. You can't just slap up a pretty picture and it's like, yeah, it's pretty, but what is that about? What's the reason for it? So I think recognizing that you need to find a way to correlate your copy to the image that you're posting, and also be relatable through that, which we found a lot through storytelling and experience shares. Angela and I will say that we are not the best copywriters, but if you are not the best copywriter, find somebody who is, and can tell your story in a way that resonates with your audience.
Or go buy Kelsey's copyright class.
There you go. Kelsey foremost.
Yeah, we have a podcast episode on it. And it's like everyone can be a writer. Like, I get that, but it's like we're naturally good at things. Like, I'm naturally good at a few really specific things. And I want to really hone in on those things, and everything else I just want to outsource, because I don't want to work that hard to figure it out. Like, that's someone else's God-given talent. And I'd rather invest in another person to actually help me with that. Another thing that I will say about the whole picture thing and not attaching copy to it, let me clear my throat for this one. People make up BS about it. It's just like the tabloids, where a couple could be talking and they look like they're arguing, but maybe they're just sharing a story about something. And the tabloids comes out and it's like Kate Middleton and Prince, whatever. I don't know, remember their name, but it's like they're fighting in public and rah, rah, rah. And it's like, I've actually done events and weddings for people where I was actually there, where pictures end up in the tabloids. And I'm like, that's not what happened at all. Like, it's just, if you leave the narrative up to the potential consumer, you're leaving major blind spots on the table. So putting a story and a narrative and copy with that picture, so you create the story that you want the consumer to know about your brand and what you're offering. If you don't, then people's minds wander, people make things up, and maybe that's a strategy for you, and that's fine. But I've learned over the years, the more clear I can be, again, clarity, the more clear you are, the speed is clarity. Speed is clarity. It's my favorite word to share.
And going going back to the copy, Angela, you mentioned, everybody has strengths, and you actually might be a really great storyteller in person or off the cuff, but putting it down on paper may be challenging because, like Aja said earlier, a lot of us get overwhelmed, or there's just not the time in the day. We're talking about time sucks, right? So, it's really refreshing to outsource it if you have the ability to do that. And also, we've learned through, before we release anything, and it's not necessarily social posts, but really any material for our classes or anything like that, we have so many people's eyes that look on that beforehand, because a lot of times you may be so close to it that you don't see, it may not make sense to someone outside of you, if that makes sense.
And I still have presentations with misspellings in it. Like, even when 4 different people have looked at it. But
usually I will catch them, though. Usually.
She does. Or I misuse the word, like here, like HEAR or HERE. Like, I wasn't good at English, and that's okay. But it's like, the point is, it's like, I don't try to be perfect. I really don't. Yeah. And I love it when people call me out, and I'm like, thank you for letting me know, but like, I don't care. Like, it is what it is. Like, you can't be good at everything. You really can't. I don't always strive for perfection when it comes to spelling.
Well, speaking of like perfection, we did have a lot of people comment, not so much questions about TikTok, but just TikTok taking up a lot of their time. I feel like TikTok has become an addiction for a lot of people. I think it's refreshing as a social platform for a lot of people because, like you said, we're not perfect. And that app and platform really gives people a space to be imperfect and have people support them. But let's talk about TikTok. I know Angela loves TikTok, and we have a lot of people who love TikTok, but it takes up a lot of their time. So what are some of your favorite things about TikTok, Angela?
Well, my most favorite thing is its short form content. So it's like 15 seconds, no more than 60 seconds. And for people with ADHD, if you know what I'm talking about, like scroll, it's just like scroll. And it's like, it really, things either capture in 2 seconds or they don't. And like, you can just keep going. But on the business side of it, what that has taught me as a person that puts out content, who enjoys teaching and sharing everything with everybody who will listen, is it's taught me how to be more powerful in 15 seconds. And also like how to chunk up. That sounds like vomit. That's gross. How to like take little chunks of really important things.
Right.
But in order to hear the whole big picture, you're going to have to go to YouTube, or you're going to have to go, off to another platform. And so it's been really interesting trying to figure out, like, okay, how can I sit down and say something really powerful and get someone's attention in 15 seconds? And I actually thought I couldn't do it. But then, like, once you start to be consistent on TikTok, I really started to see, okay, all the videos that are less than 20 seconds are actually the ones that perform best, because it's like people like me with ADHD who are just like, okay, this is boring, like keep going. And it's also entertaining and it's funny and it is a breath of fresh air. But the thing I love about TikTok, depending on how your algorithm is what I see and what my mom sees and what my niece sees. And I feel like the three of us like have some of the same, because we all share, some of the stuff with each other. We send messages through there and it's like, oh yeah, I saw that. But people's like their home screens look so, your For You page looks so incredibly different. And so the thing is, if you don't like something, so I don't like politics. And when all the election stuff was going on, I don't want to see that. I don't. And so I very quickly like scroll through. If you sit on something and watch it, like all the pets, oh my God, you're just going to get fed a bunch of pets. And then it's like, it makes me cry. And then I cry even harder. And I'm not a crier, but like, give me some dogs. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So and it's crazy how you can spark someone's emotions in 15 seconds, like with an animal. So whatever you like, you watch it because you're going to get more of it. And whatever you don't like keep going quickly. The other thing I will say from a business perspective is I know a lot of people big on TikTok who have their business feed and profile that they want to see, learn on TikTok's big hashtag. And then they have a personal profile where they actually look at like personal things that have nothing to do with business. And I think that's really smart if you have time for both. Not that you have to create content on both, but if I'm looking at like dog stuff, I really don't need to see that like on my business stuff. So that's something else. And there's different types of accounts that you can have too. You want to make sure you're getting your analytics.
Yeah, and a great podcast episode to reference with that is your episode with Kyle Kaplanis. I feel like I pronounced his name wrong, but y'all go back and listen to it. He's got some great insight. He's an awesome TikToker, and he has his whole family involved. So that's got some really great
kids, all the family.
And Angela's over here talking about how she cries when she sees dogs. I cry when I see like I don't know if anybody else is on like Cow Talk. Like there's cows all over my For You page. And
you don't even you don't eat meat.
I don't. Cows. She likes cows.
But I love cows. Yeah. Like I think they're so cute. But oh my God, like all these cows, you want to talk about tear jerkers anyway.
All mines are dancing. People dancing.
Well, Aja, I'm gonna send you some cow videos and we'll get that fixed for you. But if someone, so Bree Carol, hi Bree. Bree mentioned that there's some things that she's avoiding, and of those things, there's two that I think we may have some tips. IG Reels and TikToks. If you are looking to get started, what's the first step?
Don't record in the platform. And so, and I don't know, like there's pros and cons to this. Like Aja, you do like to record in TikTok directly and IG Reels directly, right?
Yeah, it's more favorable. But yes, I do. I prefer that. I know that it actually is quite frustrating sometimes because with the video, it's easy to go back. When you record in the native platform, sometimes you have to start all the way over. So that gets annoying, I'm not gonna lie. But I do prefer to record in the native platform. I do.
And I like to record out of the native platform because I like to wash, rinse, repeat. Now, there are times in TikTok where I really want to use a specific sound. Yeah. And so if you have an iPhone, you just pull down in the right-hand corner or the top right-hand corner, and then you record your screen. And then before you post it on TikTok, so then that screen recording goes into your camera roll, and then you can use the app called InShot to edit out the front and the back of the screen recording. And then you can also use it in IG Reels. So I know that's like a lot of steps, but it's way better than me having to do it twice. So that's kind of what I do. But I use the same on both platforms because it's a completely different audience. There's not, it's just like podcasts and YouTube videos. If you love listening to podcasts in Clubhouse now, you love audio, you probably don't hang out a lot on YouTube and you're not looking to listen to a podcast on YouTube. But if you're on YouTube, you're going to go to YouTube for like how to fix the sink, how to fix this app on my computer. Why is the beach ball spinning on my Mac? Like, it's like how to fix things, and I like to see videos, and so there's not a whole lot of crossover. It's the same thing with IG Reels and TikTok.
I agree.
So as far as learning to love these platforms, I think that there is still some adjusting that us as a society and audience to these platforms, adjusting to just being comfortable with being yourself and not feeling like you have to feel perfect all the time. We had a comment that one of the biggest time sucks that somebody has is having to get dressed and do their hair and makeup. And as ladies, we know how big of a time suck that can be. But I feel like with these new platforms and the acceptance of people just being people, it's not so necessary. I think just having the confidence to get out there and be yourself is one of the biggest things to get started on these platforms.
So I don't know. Like, I have a few things to say about that. But first off, like, having your hair and makeup done every day, that's not real life, especially post pandemic. Like, who does that? If you do that, kudos to you. I like to limit it to once a week, not take a shower almost every day. But I really, and it's funny, like I will plan everything around getting a blowout and putting makeup on, and then I'm going to do some content that day. Actually, today is Thursday, depending on when you're watching this. And today is content day because I washed my hair and I put makeup on, but like that's not real life every day. And so I'll still do content on the go. But again, it's not about you. It's not about you being perfect or looking perfect or even feeling perfect because that's just not real life.
Mhm.
So the moment that you get comfortable being uncomfortable, which can equal you becoming comfortable of just like being you, your audience is going to know that. They're going to feel that. They're going to resonate with you a lot more. So, and I even do it with my meetings too. Like I don't, not with hair and makeup, but like getting in the car and driving somewhere. There are certain, this is prior to the pandemic, but even with the pandemic, it's like, okay, I'll do 4 or 5 Zooms in a row. And then I want to do phone calls so I can get my steps in and walk on my treadmill. And if I have 8 or 9 Zooms in a row, I will still walk on my treadmill. And then people are like, your camera's moving. And I'm like, oh, is that bothering you? I'll turn my video off. I have to get my steps in. And like, I can't sit still at a desk for 8 to 10 hours a day in the same place. Like, I just can't do it. So, I mean, it hurts your back. So it's like, you've got to know what works best for you. But going back to the whole theme of this time suck, is I don't want to get in my car every single day and drive to 1 or 2 meetings and then try to get work done at my home office and then going into a co-working space. It's like, go to the co-working space or your office 1 or 2 days a week, work from home a solid day a week. Like really be intentional about how you're blocking your calendar. Now, a coach that taught me this, and I'm like, I can't do that. I have to be available when my clients are available. And yes, you're going to have some flexibility around it. But what I've learned is when typically we, Amanda and I, we're making suggestions. It's like these 3 dates and times are available. Do any of these work for you? Or if we use Calendly link, Aj's favorite software, then you're going to block certain days a week or certain times a week for people to schedule meetings with you via Calendly. So you are in control 95% of the time of your schedule and really start to own that.
Right.
I went off on a tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. We talked about this beforehand.
Amanda's like, quit going off on a
I'm
tangent.
trying to think about the original question. What was the original question?
I know. We were talking about getting comfortable.
What was it? No, the
Yes.
question was hair and makeup and like putting it on every day. I mean, that's like an hour's worth of time. That's 5 hours a week, 7 hours a week. If you do it 7 days a week, like, oh my God. And listen, if you love doing that, awesome. That's amazing. I don't. So I choose not to do it. And I'm more strategic about when those things happen. And don't worry about being perfect.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of time people like seeing people be people. That's part of the reason why I like TikTok so much. Like personally, on my own social channels, I don't spend so much time on Facebook or Instagram anymore. I feel like platforms fall into different categories, and Instagram is kind of the perfection category. Facebook, I don't even know what category it's in. YouTube is content based, LinkedIn is more business connections, and I feel like TikTok is just a place for people to create and be themselves. So if you're looking into getting into TikTok and Reels, which I think was the original question, like just be yourself. That's all that people want. They just want you to be yourself. Some of the most viewed videos I've ever seen are people just like, I wouldn't have imagined like 5 years ago that I'd be watching somebody do this through my phone screen. So just be yourself.
What are your thoughts, Aja?
I was just going to say, one thing that I always go back to is it's social media. And I think a lot of the times we forget that social part, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just one of the things I was just going to go back to is saying that a lot of people, and again, this is just feedback that I've heard, say that social media is intimidating. And I think that a lot of that pressure comes from this culture of perfection that we've created, especially on Instagram. And so I really do want to reframe and say, first and foremost, social media is social. And so if we can just keep that at the forefront, a lot of people think that, you have to have a whole branding shoot and spend, upwards of thousands of dollars to get started on social media. First off, if you've never looked at Angela's YouTube and all her iPhone hacks and tricks and tips and all those fun things, she really does show you how to take some really beautiful images with your iPhone. And mostly everyone has some, I'm going to say smartphone. We may have some people who are not iPhone users, but that's completely okay. But yeah, I just go back to keeping social media social. And I think going back to the original question that Bree asked, which I think is this is really important, what Angela mentioned. One of the things that I see people do a lot is they will make videos in TikTok, and then they will use that same TikTok video on a different platform, which is like a no-no. I definitely think that if you are looking to repurpose content, which should be the goal of any business, creating that video, either creating that video outside, like in your regular camera roll, or taking the time to create a video in each native platform, which I know Angela's like, oh no, I would never do that. But it's important to remember each platform has its own cadence, and everyone is going to get a different message. So, and keep it social.
Well, and I think elaborating on that, where Aja's talking about making sure not to transfer from other platforms,
Right.
It's only helping you because for example, TikToks and Reels. Reels does not like when you repurpose things from TikTok.
Yep.
And you may get flagged because of it. And if you accumulate so many flags, that may hurt your account in the long run. So really that's the main purpose of it, is to keep your account in good standing with the platform.
And there's one more story before we move on. Aja, I hope you are okay me saying this.
Yes,
I
have no choice.
But when you first launched your business and you're like, I need some backdrops and to take some pictures, will you share with everyone what you did at home?
Oh, at home or traveling to the hotels?
At home, at the store, at home with your suitcase and all
the at home.
Oh, at home. At home.
I know what you're talking about now.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you get started, the planning again. I know Angela talked about the planning, but really planning out your backdrops. We traveled, goodness, all around the city of Nashville. And when I was into this certain aesthetic for my Instagram profile, I went to the at-home store.
Because they have all these little setups.
It's like a home decor store.
And I was like, I mean, we just took some pictures in there. It was so awkward and uncomfortable. And then we took some pictures at, I think it was at the Westin. I don't even remember. But yeah, we took some pictures at the Westin because there was like a certain aesthetic that I wanted. Like golds and really deep golds and some yellows and blacks and gray. And more of the story, you got to get creative.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. But can you see somebody like with a full-blown
suitcase
luggage, like you're going to the airport and you bring in your outfits, and I'm like, that is awesome. And then wasn't there one where you got on? So there's these like little mini, Hobby Lobby kind of does it too, like especially during the holidays. Mm-hmm. And it's like a couch and chairs and like a little living room mock-up, and they're on like a little bit of elevation, but they're not.
I think that was at the at-home.
It was at home. It was at the at-home store. Yes.
Were you like talking about the McDonald's Coke or something in that picture? Yes. I think. Yeah, I remember that.
I got my friends to come with me and take pictures of me. And this is when I didn't have a budget to, get a branding photo shoot. So I literally paid them in McDonald's Diet Cokes. And
those are some good friends.
There's some good friends, and it was awesome. It was so much fun. And Yeah, I would do it again in a heartbeat. Probably
Yeah,
wouldn't.
and
Yeah, maybe
when
not
we
at
plan
home.
out, yeah, when we do content days together, I mean, we kind of do the same thing. We plan out our day. We have a suitcase. We get changed in the back of the car and bathrooms, and like, a lot of times, we'll ask permission to go to locations, and a lot of times places, especially hotels, are okay with you doing that if you tag them in your posts and mention them. So very
Or
good
some
point.
charge.
Well, some
Some
do.
Yeah,
some
some do
do
charge.
charge.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go in with like a full production, you definitely need to ask because you don't want to get kicked out.
I will say it is less uncomfortable rolling a huge suitcase in a hotel than it was in the at-home store. So that's just a little.
For sure.
If you're choosing to have a backdrop, as you know, we have some really beautiful boutique hotels here in Nashville. So if you are making that choice to take some images there, completely normalize, or it's normal to roll in with a suitcase. No one is going to think twice about what you're doing there. They actually are probably going to think you're a guest. So,
Right.
yep, just walk in there like you own it, and you will.
Great tip. Well, as we're coming to a close, I want to ask one more question. So Kathleen told us that social media is a huge time suck and a distraction for her. There's so many platforms, and it takes up so much time. If you are, even if you're established, but you're looking to get more into social media, what do you feel are, kind of the starter platforms? What do you think are kind of essential? She mentioned Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, Clubhouse, all these things. What do you think is good for a beginner?
Well, even before we jump into the answer, the first word is distraction that pops out at me. And to me, it's like turn your notifications off on your computer, on your phone. They will be there at the end of the day. And you have to take a little bit of time, and you set it up one time. One time. I mean, you have to do it on each device. If you use an iPad, if you use a Mac, I don't know how Windows works, but if you use all these different platforms and all day you have these things sliding in, like not only the slide ins, but the dings, it drives me freaking bonkers. It's such a distraction. So there are a few things that you can do to even remove the distraction. And then at the end of the day, if you set up your notifications, especially in your phone, like I'll show you guys, like I go and I pull down on my phone once a day at the end of the day. And like it has everything in my notification center, and it's grouped together by app. And the only apps that come up in my notification center are the apps that I want to see. So like all the preloaded stuff on there, they're like, I don't care anything about. I just turn that off. And then they're not even in my notification center anywhere on the computer or on the phone. So that's the first thing. And then from a beginner perspective, Aja, what are your thoughts on that?
I love this question, Amanda. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I like to say that more is not necessarily more. And Angela is right. Like, I mean, my goodness, like there's probably going to be a social media platform started. It seems like almost every day. So the best way I answer this question is I go back to business goals and your target audience. Everyone from the get-go, like when they start a business, if you don't have a business plan, highly recommend. But everyone 9 times out of 10 has a very high level of who their target market is. So for example, if you're like, okay, my target market are women who are between the ages of 40 to 50 years old. Well, just from that information alone, I can probably tell you that audience is probably not going to be on Instagram. We have found that the audience is on TikTok. That particular audience, they buy on Facebook. And depending on if, you say, well, I'm really looking for professional women, then they're going to be on LinkedIn. So it's a really good indicator to figure out where to start based off of your target audience. If you're saying, hey, my target audience, they're only Fortune 500, companies, then you don't need to start or focus primarily on TikTok or Instagram, because we already know that audience is going to be on LinkedIn. So that's the best way I can answer that question, is starting from, okay, well, who is my ideal or who is my target market? And then researching the platforms to figure out, okay, well, this particular platform, we're showing that they have this specific audience here and so forth and so forth. I can go really deep in that, but just very high level, figuring out your target audience and then meeting them where they are. That's what I always like to say, meeting your target audience where they are. They're not everywhere, but they are on specific platforms.
And also, too, don't feel like you have to be everything to everybody and everywhere.
Yep.
With everything, it's like the word focus applies to social media. When you focus and you commit and you're clear and you show up consistently, you're going to get back what you put in. So, for example, I don't know, I think it was 2 years ago, we said we really wanted to grow Pinterest because we were there, but we weren't consistent and we didn't go on and engage every single day. And so, Amanda, you started it for every single day, I think for 1 hour. And then that was part of our intern program. So when we would have new interns, it was 1 hour a day, 5 days a week. Do you remember what the outcome was? It was insane.
It was great. We had tons of I mean, we probably had 600,000 plus viewers per, I want to say per week. Like, it was crazy.
It's a lot.
That's not our focus anymore. We're not focused so much there anymore. So it has, you have to be consistent with things like that for the engagement to stay. But if you put in the time and the effort, then you can definitely grow your platforms.
Yeah, and go where your audience is. And again, sometimes like what you like and then where your audience is hanging out is two different things. Like, I know that my ideal audience from a consulting perspective is not scrolling on TikTok learning dances. That's just something fun that I like doing. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time, but I also know that I can put out a few tips to help people. And then if I do pique their interest, they're going to come over to another platform or to my website to learn more. And the last tool that I want to mention with all of your social platforms, depending on where you are and where you're showing up, is Linktree. So I love Linktree because you can only post certain things, like in Instagram, you can't do a clickable link. Same thing in TikTok. So when you see people say like link in bio, and recently we've actually had a lot of people, they're like, what exactly does that mean? And we do this so frequently. I'm like, oh, you go to the bio and there's the link. But if you have multiple things going on, and Linktree has a free option, we still use the free option where you can list out a few different call to actions, CTAs, and then you can get the analytics on that. So you can tell what your audience is doing. And like every time we have a new podcast, every time we put up a new productivity video, we'll put in the copy, link in bio, and then you click on the Linktree. And then if it's a YouTube video, you would click on YouTube. If it is a podcast, you would click on the podcast button. So there are tools that can really help you gather what exactly is your audience responding to. Because I can tell you from experience, there's nothing more frustrating than doing a strategy, putting the time in. And there's a lot of funny TikToks about it. I'm putting the time in, and nothing's happening. And I've got 5 views. I'm like, I'm putting the time in. It's really frustrating. And then people get so overwhelmed, they get aggravated, and then they just stop. But if you're not taking it a step further to actually watching and seeing what your audience is responding to, and then creating content around the things that people are responding to.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got for today.
Awesome.
Final words, Aja?
Final words. Oh my goodness, for social media. Keep it social. That's the best thing I can say. Even from a business standpoint, there's a way I would lead with connecting and not lead with selling. That's the best thing I can say.
Amanda, final words.
I would just say, don't be intimidated. Be yourself. Just think of yourself, going out into the world. That's social media. You're just being yourself and meeting people through a different avenue.
Stay authentic.
That's right.
Stay authentic. Thank you for everybody that is jumping in, and to everybody who's going to watch this in the future.
Yes.
And I am so appreciative that you have given us an hour of your time. And obviously, we're providing value. Otherwise, click off of it. It's not a big deal.
Oh gosh.
We're providing value, right? So be sure to tune in next week to another episode of the number one time suck, and send us your time sucks. We want to answer your questions. This is really, really fun for us. So everybody have a GSD day and stay productive. Bye, y'all.
Bye.